work our way down. And so this is from John Frost, a likely story. And it is this. Has there ever been an American president who enjoys the job as much as Donald Trump? What effect does this have on the misery-mongering left? Could you discuss connections between leadership, attitude, and the notions of a political figurehead versus an employee of the people? Wow. That's a really interesting question. A lot about that I like a lot. So let me see if I can get to some of that. So first part first. Has anybody ever enjoyed this as much as Donald Trump? I think Ronald Reagan might have, but he's the only person comes to mind. Jack Kennedy seemed like he was having a good time too. It's not a fun job, and I certainly wouldn't want it. Just, all you have to do is take a look at pictures of a guy when he was elected, and then especially if they did 2 terms, you take a look at them at the end of 8 years, they look like they've aged 20. Obama was the same way, George Bush, all of them. It just sucks it out of you. So I think the part that's more interesting is what effect does it have on the misery-mongering left? And, this is another aspect of the Trump phenomenon that I haven't had a chance to really spend too much time on. All of the power that the left has is power that we give them. The only power they have over us is the power to make us shut up and do what they want us to do because they make us feel guilty. They use peer pressure and social proof, and they start throwing around terms like racist and Islamophobe and all the rest of it. And so good people who aren't any of those things just shut up. But basically, the whole thing is, in fact, a bluff on their part, because if we didn't shut up, they would have no power over us whatsoever. We got the guns. Hooray. So the whole thing is just predicated on you doing what you're expected to do, which is to take a knee to their moralizing and their attitudes about what's right and what's wrong. And if you don't do that, then they don't know what to do with you. And this is, I think, the thing they hate most about him. He either sees right through their power or it just doesn't bother him. Either way, it completely negates it. So he just simply doesn't seem to care. And that's why he's president, because he doesn't care what the left says about him. He doesn't care. And this whole thing started with his initial entry into the campaign when he was the first person to say, there's a lot of illegal aliens coming to the country causing a lot of crimes. And how can you say such a thing? He just says it because it's true. And he has that ability, I think, to just simply ignore what people say. And this has got to come from his background. I mean, the guy not only has an enormous ego, obviously, but also has had to deal with a lot of really shady characters and a lot of nasty people in business and so on. So in any event, he seems to be the only guy who really understands that sticks and stones thing that we used to learn. And then final part of the question is, could you discuss the connections between leadership, attitude, and the notions of a political figurehead versus an employee of the people? I'll be honest with you, John. Donald Trump is, in my opinion, is doing an amazing job of prying this government loose from the unelected bureaucrats that think that they own it and giving it back to the American people. But with that said, I don't think of Donald Trump as a public employee, and I don't know if he does either. He may say that he is, but he certainly doesn't strike me that way. Ronald Reagan, just something I happen to know about anecdotally, he was an employee of the people, and his speechwriters would say he just wanted to find out what the American people wanted and do that. I think Donald Trump is more like a bull in a china shop, and we not only did we put him in the china shop, we locked the china shop door behind him until everything was thoroughly smashed. So he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who gets up every morning and says to himself, how can we do the will of the people today? I do think he wakes up every morning and says, which one of these rotten SOBs needs a shellacking today? But again, the whole point about Donald Trump, and I think the whole point of this whole question is, he is successful and despised, not just despised, loathed, hated with a burning passion, because he is not only getting an agenda that the left doesn't like done, he's doing it in a way that shows that the left has no power. If everybody were to pay attention to what Donald Trump is doing and just not give a damn about what the left was saying about them, then this would be over. It'd be over. If a high school coach of women's athletics is told that he has to put a transgender athlete who, it doesn't matter whether they've had surgery, hormone replacement, nothing. If they're born male and they have male pelvis, and that provides mechanical advantages, and so does their muscular structure. So a guy who didn't care about what people thought would just say, no, I'm sorry, you're not racing with the women because you're not a woman. Well, I feel like a woman. Well, that's swell. Have a race about, among people who feel like they're women. But this is women's athletics, and we're not going to ruin the entire year for all of our female athletes because it makes you unhappy that you don't get to beat them by 2-3 seconds. So, no. Once you got to that point, if you had people that were just, with that kind of fundamental common sense and that kind of moral courage to swim upstream, that's really what it requires, It takes a certain amount of moral courage for me to be able to say things like I just said, because that there's always people out there who are going to take them and use them, and sometimes use them out of context, and other times use them in context, but without really explaining, why that is. And what I mean by that is, I remember during the Illinois fiasco, one of the things they asked me was, did you say that black Americans were unemployed and unemployable? I said, yes, I did say that. And I said that because in all of these democratically controlled cities, the situation with welfare, crime, all of it, corruption is so bad that they can't be anything else other than unemployed and unemployable. This is the dependency on the government that's done that to them. They didn't include that part, and so you can hardly really say it was taken out of context. But in any event, it's certainly selective quoting to get the wrong idea across. So it never ceases to amaze me how simple it is to beat these people. Just simply don't care, and that's about it. I really think that's it. Okay, so take more here. This is from